It all started with a feeling in my gut, a nagging suspicion that something wasn't quite right. You know that feeling, the one that gnaws at you until you can't ignore it anymore? Yeah, that's the one. For months, I'd been buried in my work, chasing after that elusive promotion like it was the Holy Grail. Claudine, my wife of 5 years, was always supportive, or so I thought. We were both knee-deep in the IT world, grinding away at our jobs day in and day out. Our schedules were packed, and quality time together became a rare commodity. But hey, isn't that just how it goes when you're climbing the corporate ladder? Then one night, everything changed. I overheard Claudine talking on the phone, her voice hushed and urgent, like she was sharing some big secret. And the call? Well, it ended abruptly the moment I walked in. Red flags started waving in my mind, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something fishy was going on. So, like any curious husband in the digital age, I did what any sane person would do. I checked her phone. Call logs deleted, messages meticulously scrubbed clean. But there was one app one didn't recognize: Telegram. We'd always used WhatsApp for everything, so why the sudden change? That's when I started digging deeper. And boy, did I hit pay dirt. Turns out, Claudine had been having a little side action with a coworker. 9 weeks of sexting, sneaky rendezvous, the whole shebang. My head was spinning, and my heart felt like it had been sucker punched. But you know what hurt the most? It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the realization that I'd been so wrapped up in my own ambitions that I hadn't noticed my marriage slipping through my fingers. And now, here I was, facing a crossroads I never saw coming. Funny how life throws you curveballs when you least expect it, huh? So there I was, staring at the evidence of Claudine's betrayal like it was some kind of cruel joke. But there was no denying it, the texts, the pictures, it was all there, mocking me from the screen of her phone. I wish I could say I was calm and collected, but that would be a lie. My hands were shaking, my heart was racing, and my mind was a jumbled mess of anger and confusion. How could she do this to me? To us? I must have spent hours going over every detail, trying to make sense of it all. Was it something I did? Something I didn't do? The questions kept swirling around in my head, but there were no easy answers. Eventually, the shock wore off, and in its place came a deep, sinking feeling of betrayal. I thought I knew Claudine inside and out, but it turns out, I didn't know her at all. The person I thought was my partner in life had become a stranger, and it hurt more than I ever thought possible. But amidst the pain and the anger, there was something else brewing, a simmering rage that threatened to consume me whole. How dare she betray my trust like this? How dare she throw away everything we'd built together? I wanted answers, I needed answers. So I confronted her, fueled by a mixture of fear and desperation. Part of me hoped she'd deny it, that it was all just a big misunderstanding. But deep down, I knew the truth, and so did she. The look on her face when I laid it all out on the table, that mixture of guilt and shame, it's something I'll never forget. She tried to explain herself, to make excuses for her actions, but it all fell on deaf ears. There was nothing she could say to justify what she'd done. And in that moment, as I stood there face to face with the person I thought I knew, I realized something: I was done. Done with the lies, done with the deceit, done with pretending like everything was okay. It was time to face the truth, no matter how painful it might be. After confronting Claudine about her betrayal, everything seemed to blur together. The shock of it all left me feeling numb, like I was walking through life in a daze. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't focus on anything but the overwhelming sense of betrayal coursing through my veins. For days, I was stuck in this fog of disbelief, unable to process what had happened. I kept replaying the scene in my head, trying to make sense of it all, but it was like banging my head against a brick wall, pointless and painful. And then, like a switch had been flipped, the numbness gave way to something else, something darker, something vengeful. I wanted Claudine to feel the same pain I was feeling, to understand the magnitude of her betrayal. So I hatched a plan, fueled by anger and hurt, to get back at her in the worst way possible. I started by concocting a story, a lie so elaborate that even I had a hard time believing it. I told Claudine that I was having an affair, that I was leaving her for another woman. The look on her face when I dropped that bombshell, it was like a punch to the gut, and for a brief moment, I reveled in the satisfaction of her shock. But deep down, I knew it wasn't enough. I wanted to destroy her, to tear down everything she thought she knew about herself. So I decided to take it a step further. I would expose her affair to the world, strip away the facade of innocence she'd been hiding behind. I reached out to friends, family, anyone who would listen, and laid out the evidence of Claudine's betrayal for all to see. I wanted her to feel the same shame and humiliation I'd felt when I discovered her infidelity. And for a moment, it worked. Claudine was left scrambling to salvage what was left of her reputation, while I stood back and watched it all unfold with a sick sense of satisfaction. But as the dust began to settle, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd become something I swore I never would, a vengeful, bitter shell of the man I used to be. The anger that had fueled my revenge had burned itself out, leaving nothing but emptiness in its wake. I realized then that no amount of revenge could ever heal the wounds Claudine had inflicted, nor could it erase the pain of betrayal. And as I looked at the wreckage of our marriage, I knew that the only way forward was to let go of the anger and find a way to move on, no matter how impossible it seemed. As the chaos of my revenge plot settled, I found myself facing a harsh reality. I couldn't keep living like this. The anger that had fueled my actions was fading, replaced by a sense of emptiness and exhaustion. I knew I needed to make a decision, and fast. The thought of divorce had been lingering in the back of my mind ever since I discovered Claudine's affair. But now, it loomed in front of me like a daunting obstacle, casting a shadow over everything I held dear. I sought advice from friends, family, anyone who would lend an ear. They all offered their opinions, their well-meaning advice, but in the end, the decision was mine and mine alone. I weighed the pros and cons, the memories of our time together clashing with the pain of betrayal. On one hand, there was the hope of salvaging what was left of our marriage, of rebuilding the trust that had been shattered. On the other hand, there was the harsh reality of facing life without Claudine by my side, of starting over from scratch. But as I reflected on our relationship, I realized something: trust, once broken, is almost impossible to repair. No matter how much I wanted to believe that we could move past this, deep down, I knew that the damage had been done. And so, with a heavy heart and a sense of resignation, I made the decision to end our marriage. It wasn't an easy choice, far from it, but it was the only choice that made sense in the wake of Claudine's betrayal. I reached out to a lawyer, laying out the evidence of Claudine's infidelity and beginning the process of untangling our lives from one another. It was a daunting task, navigating the complexities of divorce, but with each step forward, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with twists and turns I couldn't predict. But as I looked towards the future, I felt a glimmer of hope amidst the wreckage of my failed marriage. Maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for me to find happiness again, to rebuild my life on my own terms. And as I took the first steps towards that uncertain future, I knew that I was finally taking control of my own destiny. With the decision to divorce weighing heavily on my mind, I knew I couldn't put off confronting Claudine any longer. It was time to face her, to lay everything out on the table and begin the painful process of untangling our lives from one another. I called Claudine and arranged to meet her at our favorite cafe, the one where we'd shared countless memories over the years. As I sat there, waiting for her to arrive, my stomach churned with nerves and uncertainty. What would she say? How would she react? I had no idea, but I knew I had to steel myself for whatever came next. When Claudine finally walked through the door, I could see the tension in her shoulders, the fear in her eyes. She knew what was coming, just as I did, and there was no avoiding it any longer. We sat down at a secluded table in the corner, the noise of the cafe fading into the background as we faced each other for what felt like the first time in ages. There was so much I wanted to say, so many questions burning on the tip of my tongue, but when I opened my mouth, the words stuck in my throat. It was Claudine who broke the silence first, her voice soft and tentative as she began to speak. She apologized, begged for forgiveness, pleaded for another chance. But as she spoke, I couldn't help but feel a sense of detachment, as if I were watching the scene unfold from a distance. I listened to her words, the same words I'd heard countless times before, but this time, they held no sway over me. I'd heard enough empty promises to last a lifetime, and I knew that no amount of pleading would change what had happened. When Claudine finished speaking, there was a moment of silence between us, the weight of our shared history hanging heavy in the air. And then, without a word, I reached into my pocket and pulled out the papers, the divorce papers. I slid them across the table towards Claudine, watching as her eyes widened in shock and disbelief. There was no turning back now, no more pretending like everything was okay. This was the end, and we both knew it. As Claudine reached for the papers, her hand trembling slightly, I felt a sense of finality wash over me. The decision had been made, the first step towards a new beginning had been taken. And as I walked out of that cafe, leaving Claudine behind, I knew that I was finally free to chart my own course, to find a future that didn't include her. Leaving the cafe after confronting Claudine felt like shedding a heavy burden. Yet, as I stepped out into the world, I realized that the aftermath of our encounter was far from over. External influences were about to make their presence known, adding more layers to the already complicated situation. The first ripple came in the form of a call from Claudine's father. His voice, filled with concern and regret, offered a glimpse into the pain that extended beyond just Claudine and me. He expressed his sorrow over the situation and left the decision of divorce or reconciliation in my hands. His words weighed heavily on me, reminding me of the gravity of the choice I'd made. But Claudine's family wasn't the only external force at play. As news of our impending divorce spread, rumors began to swirl, drawing the attention of our friends, colleagues, and even acquaintances. Suddenly, everyone had an opinion, and everyone seemed to have a stake in our crumbling marriage. I found myself bombarded with questions and well-intentioned advice from all sides. Some urged me to give Claudine another chance, to forgive and forget. Others encouraged me to stand firm in my decision, to prioritize my own happiness above all else. Amidst the chaos, there was one unexpected encounter that stood out, a meeting with the wife of Claudine's affair partner. She sought me out, her eyes filled with a mixture of anger and despair. She shared her own story of betrayal, her pain mirroring my own in ways I hadn't anticipated. Together, we commiserated over our shared experiences, finding solace in each other's company. It was a fleeting moment of connection in the midst of turmoil, a reminder that I wasn't alone in my pain. But as the dust began to settle, I realized that I couldn't let external influences dictate the course of my life. The decision to divorce Claudine was mine and mine alone, and I needed to stay true to myself, regardless of what others may think or say. With newfound resolve, I faced the coming days with a sense of determination. The road ahead would be rocky, filled with challenges and uncertainties, but I was ready to navigate it with my head held high. And as I took the first steps forward, I knew that no matter what lay ahead, I would emerge stronger on the other side. As the external influences of Claudine's affair and our impending divorce continued to swirl around me, I found myself grappling with a different kind of turmoil, a storm of emotions raging within me, tearing me in different directions. On one hand, there was the lingering sense of hurt and betrayal, a wound that seemed to deepen with each passing day. The images of Claudine with her affair partner haunted my thoughts, leaving me with a bitter taste in my mouth and a heaviness in my heart. How could someone I loved and trusted so deeply betray me in such a profound way? But amidst the anger and resentment, there was another, more insidious emotion lurking beneath the surface: doubt. Doubt that I'd made the right decision in choosing to divorce Claudine, doubt that I could ever truly move on from the pain she'd caused. I found myself second-guessing every choice I'd made, replaying the events of our marriage in my mind like a broken record. What if I'd been more attentive? What if I'd seen the signs earlier? What if I'd given Claudine another chance? The uncertainty gnawed at me, eating away at my resolve like a cancer. Part of me wanted to believe that Claudine could change, that we could somehow salvage what was left of our shattered marriage. But deep down, I knew that trust, once broken, was nearly impossible to rebuild. And so, I found myself at a crossroads, torn between the desire for closure and the fear of what lay ahead. The road to divorce stretched out before me like an endless expanse of uncertainty, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking it alone. But as I grappled with my internal conflict, I began to realize something: I couldn't let fear dictate my future. I needed to find the strength within myself to move forward, to let go of the past and embrace the possibilities of tomorrow. With that newfound determination, I faced the coming days with a sense of purpose. The road ahead would be rocky, filled with obstacles and challenges, but I was ready to face them head-on. And as I took the first steps forward, I knew that no matter what lay ahead, I would emerge stronger, wiser, and more resilient than ever before. With the weight of my internal conflict heavy on my shoulders, I returned to the familiarity of my workplace, seeking refuge in the routine of my daily tasks. But as I stepped through the office doors, I couldn't escape the whispers and sidelong glances that followed me wherever I went. Word of Claudine's affair and our impending divorce had spread like wildfire through the grapevine of office gossip, leaving me feeling exposed and vulnerable. It seemed like everyone had an opinion, everyone had something to say about my personal life. I tried to bury myself in my work, to focus on the tasks at hand and block out the noise of the outside world. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, of being judged by my colleagues. And then came the fallout, the repercussions of Claudine's affair reverberating through the halls of our workplace like a shockwave. Rumors swirled, accusations flew, and before long, the affair partner found himself facing the consequences of his actions. HR launched an investigation, probing into the details of the affair and its potential impact on our professional environment. Claudine's job hung in the balance, her future uncertain as she awaited the outcome of the investigation. As for me, I found myself caught in the crossfire, forced to navigate the complexities of workplace politics while dealing with the fallout of my failed marriage. It was a delicate balancing act, one that left me feeling drained and overwhelmed. But amidst the chaos, there was a glimmer of hope, a ray of light cutting through the darkness of uncertainty. Despite the turmoil surrounding me, I refused to let it consume me. I focused on the task at hand, channeling my energy into my work and pushing forward with determination. And as the days turned into weeks, I began to see a shift, a gradual easing of tensions, a return to some semblance of normalcy. The whispers faded, the sidelong glances softened, and I found myself breathing a sigh of relief. The road ahead was still uncertain, filled with challenges and obstacles I couldn't predict. But as I stood in the midst of the workplace fallout, I knew that I was stronger than I'd ever been before. And with that strength, I faced the future with a sense of optimism, ready to tackle whatever lay ahead. I found myself at a crossroads, unsure of what the future held but determined to chart my own course. The chaos of the past few weeks had left me exhausted and drained, but amidst the uncertainty, there was a glimmer of hope, a chance for resolution, for closure. I turned my focus inward, taking stock of my emotions and desires as I grappled with the aftermath of Claudine's affair and our impending divorce. It wasn't easy, confronting the pain and betrayal head-on, but with each passing day, I felt a sense of clarity begin to emerge. I knew that forgiveness wasn't something that could be forced, it had to come from within, a choice made willingly and without reservation. And so, I wrestled with my feelings, weighing the pros and cons of giving Claudine another chance. On one hand, there was the temptation to forgive, to let go of the anger and hurt that had consumed me for so long. Claudine's remorse seemed genuine, her efforts to make amends sincere. But on the other hand, there was the fear of opening myself up to more pain, of risking my heart once again on someone who had already broken it. In the end, it was a conversation with Claudine that brought me the clarity I so desperately sought. We sat down together, face to face, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, we spoke openly and honestly about our feelings. Claudine admitted her mistakes, her regret palpable in the air between us. She swore that she would do whatever it took to earn back my trust, to prove that she was worthy of a second chance. And as I listened to her words, something inside me shifted, a glimmer of hope flickering to life in the darkness of my doubts. Maybe, just maybe, forgiveness was possible, redemption within reach. But even as I entertained the possibility of reconciliation, I knew that it wouldn't be easy. Trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild, and there were no guarantees that we could ever fully mend what had been shattered. And so, I made a decision to give Claudine another chance, to see if we could salvage what was left of our marriage. It wasn't a decision made lightly, but it was one made with the knowledge that forgiveness is a choice to let go of the past and embrace the possibilities of the future. As I looked towards the horizon, I felt a sense of peace wash over me, a sense of resolution that I hadn't felt in a long time. The road ahead would be rocky, filled with twists and turns I couldn't predict, but with Claudine by my side, I knew that I was ready to face whatever came our way. And with that knowledge, I stepped forward into the unknown, ready to embrace whatever the future had in store. With the decision to give Claudine another chance weighing heavily on my mind, I embarked on a journey of healing and reconciliation, uncertain of what the future held but hopeful for a better tomorrow. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, as Claudine and I worked tirelessly to rebuild the trust that had been shattered by our affair. It wasn't easy, far from it. There were moments of doubt and insecurity, moments when the pain of the past threatened to overwhelm us both. But through it all, we persevered, leaning on each other for support and guidance as we navigated the rocky road of forgiveness. Slowly but surely, our efforts began to bear fruit. The wounds of the past began to heal, replaced by a newfound sense of closeness and understanding. Claudine's remorse was evident in every word and action, and I found myself beginning to believe that maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. But even as we forged ahead, there were reminders of the pain and betrayal that had brought us to this point. The scars of Claudine's affair lingered, a constant reminder of the fragility of trust and the importance of communication in a marriage. Yet, in spite of the challenges we faced, there was a sense of hope in the air, a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel. We talked openly and honestly about our feelings, addressing the issues that had driven us apart in the first place and making a conscious effort to prioritize our relationship above all else. And as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, I began to see a change in Claudine, a change that filled me with hope for the future. She was more attentive, more affectionate, more committed to making our marriage work than ever before. But perhaps most importantly, I began to see a change in myself, a change that brought me closer to the person I had once been before the turmoil of Claudine's affair had rocked my world. I found myself letting go of the anger and resentment that had consumed me, replacing them with forgiveness and compassion. And as I looked towards the horizon, I felt a sense of peace wash over me, a peace that came from knowing that no matter what challenges lay ahead, Claudine and I would face them together, united in our commitment to each other and our shared future. The road ahead would be filled with ups and downs, twists and turns I couldn't predict, but with Claudine by my side, I knew that I was ready to face whatever came our way. And as I took her hand in mine, I knew that our love was stronger than any obstacle we might encounter, a beacon of hope guiding us towards a brighter tomorrow.